Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Tax day, that's right, the dreaded tax day. A lot of people breathing sigh of relief. It's over, the pain, the suffering. Oh my goodness, finally got through it. It's over. And then some of us, like me, whose accountant goes, well, didn't quite get it all done. Gonna have to file an extension. I'm not happy about it at all, by the way, because I'm now going to have to continue to worry about it going forward. There are those of us who have done that. But for most of us, it's over. It's done with. Hopefully a bunch of people get returns back, get something back at the end of the year. For a lot of folks, it's a little savings. My daughter this year, one of those conversations, I didn't get anything. Oh, what'd you claim? Oh, I claimed one. Oh, that's why. Most people claim zero, get a little bit back. Kind of like a little forced savings. Some people do, some people don't. Interesting, curious how the tax season went for you. For me, the tax day is one of those days that highlights the fact that most of us are going to continue, the vast majority of us are going to continue to go to work every day, pay taxes all throughout the year. We're going to get hammered and hammered and hammered. And then there are some of us, the wealthier ones, the Mike Bloombergs of the world, the very wealthy who have tax avoidance lawyers who, well, they're going to walk away scot-free. And some corporations who are going to do really, really well and not pay anything. And it just shows me how unequal our system is and how unfair it is. And it comes down to who had the most money to lobby to get the best laws that they could possibly buy, the most loopholes, the most ways of going about things. And as we talked about in past programs, look, the wealthy have done a masterful job. Give them credit of investing a little bit of money and hiring lobbyists and buying some politicians to push for tax code things that are beneficial to them. They've spent, a couple $1,000s on the front end, maybe a couple million even, and have reaped untold fortunes over the last decades. They won. Congratulations. And this is the day where they get to celebrate. What we know, and this is the thing that gets me, what we know is our wealth class friends, for all of the whining and all of the Mike Gibbonses out there saying, the middle class, they don't pay their fair share. And those poor people, forget about it. They're mooches. We miss out on about $1 trillion a year. About $1 trillion. Stop and think about this for a second. About $1 trillion a year because we don't tax the very wealthy. Now, I spend these last couple of days, going back and forth with people going, our debt's so bad. We're $30 trillion in debt. And interesting kind of moment. And this is where we're in this weird spot because we've been trained like Pavlovian dogs to anytime we hear the word tax to foam at the mouth and get all wired up. It's interesting to me. And this is, again, this is one of those kind of moments. And I think it's because Americans are optimistic. Americans believe we're all going to be the next Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. We're all gonna be billionaires. And I wish that for everyone. I wish everyone was a billionaire. The problem is if we were all billionaires, I don't know how big the wheelbarrow would it be that we would need to buy a loaf of bread with. But I look at the fact that we're in a moment where the very wealthy have walked away from basically paying taxes because of how we tax things. And look, I get these weird arguments. You just don't like rich people. No, I like rich people. I know some of them. They're good people. It's not them I have a problem with. And people want to make this about something by being personal. You don't like Jeff Bezos, or you don't like Elon Musk, or you don't like Gates, or any of these people. I don't actually know them. It's not them. It's not them individually. This is not personal. This isn't. I don't know Mike Bloomberg, but the fact that he paid 3.4% on $2 billion a year income over the years that ProPublica looked at his income, there's something wrong with a system that allows that to stay in place. And a system, mind you, that we find out here recently through testimony that is increasingly looking at auditing poor people and going after people making less than $25,000 a year at a higher rate than people making between $200,000 and $1 million. Explain how that is possible. Explain how it is that we're going after the people who have the least amount of wealth and resource. Because I think I'm struggling with that. I know low-hanging fruit, easy returns. We can bang out the more numbers. We can hit goals and stuff like that. I kind of get it. But the fact that audits on millionaires are down 70% this decade is a serious problem. And again, back to that $1 trillion a year that if we taxed rich people at, we could, I don't know. Let me think about it. What could we do with an extra $1 trillion a year? What could you do with a trillion, with a trilly? What could you do with that? Wow. I don't know. Pay for health care, education. Maybe we wouldn't saddle an entire generation with student loan debt. Here's an even better idea. Ooh, here's a good idea. Maybe we could pay off the debt from the past. Yeah, and then all of those people who are complaining, maybe all those people that are complaining about the $30 trillion that we're in debt would shut the blank up. Because understand, and this is what I've been saying for a very long time, this is not new. We created a wealth class by taking on a debt, a massive debt, by creating a debt class. And we've done that because we love rich people, because we all think we're going to be them. And I've said, and one of the things that I would love to do is, have rich people trading cards. Like when we were kids, we traded baseball cards. I would love to have rich people trading cards. Why not? We built them. We created them. We should trade them. But you go $1 trillion a year, Rick. That's $1 trillion. What could you do with that? Well, you could have covered the child tax credit. You remember that thing that cut poverty by 40%? You could have spent $100 billion. 10%, just 10% of that $1 trillion we could have spent on cutting childhood poverty by 40%. So what, if we would have spent, maybe 20% of it, could we have cut it more? If we would have spent 25%, could we have eliminated it? Could we possibly eliminate childhood poverty in this country? Could we eliminate homelessness? Could we deal with our homeless veterans? Could we do that? Of course we could. This nonsense that we don't have the resources, we don't have the money. Sorry, Rick, we'd love to do those liberal hippy-dippy things that you keep advocating for, but we're broke. We're not broke. We've just done different things with the revenue that we have. We're giving it to rich people. Now, I find it interesting, and again, this is one of these really weird moments that I find very interesting. Today, I tweeted something out that got some interesting response. I put out one of those meme kind of things that I copied from somewhere else. It's not mine. But it simply said, you're not mad that someone else might soon make $15 an hour. You're mad because you should be making 25 or 30. And you should be mad. Refocus. You should be mad because you're not making, like you're making $15 an hour and now the minimum wage person's going to be making that and you're mad that you're not doing better? You should be. Be angry about that. It goes on to say your enemy isn't the poor fellow who's finally getting a few more crumbs. Your enemy is the billionaire who's been robbing you of a fair living wage all these years. And that's true. Now, you may remember the Rand Corporation, that hippy-dippy liberal kind of group out there that's been around for a while. They did a little study, kind of little bitty study that pointed out the fact that trillions of dollars have been redistributed from your pocket to our billionaire friends' pockets. In fact, they pointed out from 1975 to 2018 that about $2.5 trillion in wealth. That would be a 2, a 5, and then 11 zeros if you're writing it out by hand. So a 2, a 5, and 11 zeros. That's $2.5 trillion. That's been it's been extracted from the working class and somehow sucked all the way up to the top 1%. So those folks in the 2 and the 2 through 9, somewhere, them too, they're part of this. Massive transfer of wealth from the bottom 90%, those of us, you, me, the working folk, all the way up to them. So I put this little meme out there, and some of the responses I got were quite interesting. And one person, I think, hit it really right on the head. They said, look, the right wing certainly doesn't see it that way. They worship rich people. And look, you can worship rich people, but still see things in a way that are accurate. One woman pointed out, she said, your enemy may be yourself. You may be your enemy. Don't buy into the victim narrative. Be better. Work harder. Push yourself. Make goals. Have integrity. Never give up. And I love cheerleading talk. I do. I love this. I love pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Go get them. Yay. I love that cheerleader kind of stuff. I do. I love it a lot because we do need it. But this takes into this world thought that we're a meritocracy. We're not. We haven't been a meritocracy for a very long time because a lot of people work really hard. I see them every day working harder and harder every day, working to try and just to keep up. And a sad reality, back to the Rand Corporation study. What are we seeing? Well, we're seeing the rich people screwing over the poor people again and again and again. It's what happens. And tax day kind of highlights that. Another person chimed in, living wages are robbed by illegal aliens who work off the books and keep wages artificially low for Americans looking for entry-level jobs. Illegals are here in millions because Democrats and Republicans beholden to U.S. Chamber of Commerce wants low wages. Chamber of Commerce does want low wages. I don't disagree with that. Low wages are like heroin to the Chamber of Commerce. It's their drug. They need it. But this is that classic, let's blame the person behind me. There's someone behind me on the ladder. Let's kick them. Instead of looking ahead again to the folks in front of us, saying, that guy way up there, the guy who's about ready to push the ladder off the side of the building, maybe that's the guy who's the problem. Maybe not the person behind me. But the thing, we haven't been a meritocracy for a long time. And look, while I love to believe that your hard work and gumption and all that going to rise us all up, hasn't been that way for a long time for a lot of people. And we need smart policy. We need smart laws. We need, tax codes that are going to be much fairer. Our tax code isn't. It's that simple. Another person said people always want to fight those next to them, not with those who are holding the power over them. I agree. Another person pointed out the bought and paid for GOP wanted income to trickle down, then it didn't. Then the labor market forced higher pay, then corporate America gouged it back. Corporate greed caused inflation. They wanted all disposable income. GOP enabled corporate inflation. This is the world we're in. Corporate America and the very wealthy pull the strings, and the rest of us have to suffer the consequences. And what are we hearing now? Well, this is Joe Biden's fault, all this inflation. It's all Joe Biden's fault because he gave $1,400 to everyone through the rescue plan to help them get through the pandemic. Yet, Trump gave $1.9 trillion away during his tax scheme. He gave $2.2 trillion away during the CARES Act and signed a $900 billion pandemic relief bill. Somehow that had nothing to do with all of this, because I'm told it's the printing presses that Biden and the Fed are just printing out money daily without thinking. And yet, oddly enough, it's Biden bringing down our budget deficits. But let's not let facts get in the way of reality. Somehow the Trump spending spree did nothing on the inflation front. It did nothing to harm our debt. The fact that we've been giving away $1 trillion a year in uncollected taxes for the very wealthy, that's not a problem either. It's Joe Biden's fault. And this is my problem with bizarre, twisted right-wing narratives that keep us stupid and arguing over dumb stuff. It's not Joe Biden. It's a system that's been put into place for decades to benefit the very wealthy in this country. And until we figure out how to change that, it's going to continue no matter who the next president is. So the good idea, let's all come together and figure out how to return to a good tax code that ensures that everyone carries their weight. And the bigger and stronger you are, the more that you gain from our economy, and the more you gain from our system, the more you help others to get through it as well. Because what good is having an economy if a large portion of us can't survive and thrive in it? Not kind of be a good time on tax day to remember that we should want and should demand an economy that works for all of us. And we should demand and push for wages where tax day isn't so onerous and so harmful. And I don't know, maybe we should be pushing for ways to make sure that we can collect the revenue that we need to do the things collectively that we want, like end childhood hunger, like end childhood poverty, like end homelessness, especially for our veterans, get health care for folks who need it, rebuild our infrastructure, do the things that collectively we can't do individually. There's a good thought. And not saddle our children with massive, debilitating intergenerational debt. Just kind of a thought. Love to hear yours. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You listen to The Rick Smith Show. For working people. Come to talk.
The world is watching as Vladimir Putin uses oil to fund his war in Ukraine. Tragically, we've seen this before. If we rely on foreign dictators and fossil fuels, this cycle will only continue. Starting now, let's decide who makes our energy. By investing in more clean energy right here in America, we can cut off the power of tyrants. Renewable, clean energy. That's real American energy independence.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So again, I go back to that Rand Corporation study. And, you think about it, the amount of wealth extracted from the working class that has been, like I said, sucked upward. That could have been used on, I don't know, anything else. Remember, we were told, and I remember this quite clearly, that if we gave the smart people all the money, that they're smart, they're going to know what to do with it. They're going to create jobs for us. They're going to give us these things. They're benevolent. And look, I know a lot of rich people are good, charitable, decent people. I'm not saying they're not. It's one of the ways they avoid paying taxes. But they are smart. They're incredibly smart. And they know what to do with the money, and that's make more money for themselves. If they can help somebody else, they will, but that giving them more does not necessarily mean better outcomes. And this is where you go, if you want to help business, you give them customers, you don't hand them cash. And I keep asking, who's going to be the next generation? You want to solve our problems? Who's going to be the next generation of Teddy Roosevelt? That's what I want to know. Who's going to be the next trust buster? So when I saw this story over at the New York Times, that the Justice Department is using the Sherman Antitrust Act to go after employers who are basically colluding to hold wages, to suppress wages down. Because remember, we're told about market wages, talk about the invisible hand, and all of these things like, ooh, spooky magic stuff. Yeah, there's an invisible guy with an invisible hand. And he's the one who sets the wages, not us. No, we have nothing to do with it. It's the market who's screwing you over. It's the invisible hand that's fisting you. It's not me. It's the invisible hand. Justice Department is moving, and they're doing this. They're going after these companies, and they're taking them to court. And they're winning, and this is important. They're going after, nurses and home health aides and engineers and physical therapists and companies that, are colluding around the idea of holding wages down. One of the examples from the article was a bunch of home health aides I believe it was in New Hampshire. Not New Hampshire, in Portland, Maine, where, you have these home health care workers who they were paying, between 16 and 17 bucks an hour. And they said, that's where we want to be. And evidently threatened another place that was going to be paying between 17 and 18.50. No, that's bad. And what you find out is the state pays like, $26.20 an hour. So, that difference between what they're paying and what the state is reimbursing them is they're operating their profit margin. So if they're paying 16, 17 bucks an hour, they're paying 16 bucks an hour, let's say, and they're getting 26.20, they're making 10.20 an hour on that person. That's pretty good. Having someone else do the work and you collecting, $10.20 an hour off of it. Now this other company had to get some people, so they had to raise the price. That's bad. And they're saying that this is non-competitive. This is a violation of the Antitrust Act, and they're actually winning some of this stuff, and they're moving forward, and I think this is a good thing. There could be, as I've found, there are fines. There could be some jail times, and I said nothing will change the system better than locking up CEOs. I would love to see perp walks, and as they point out in the article, until recently, all of the franchisees out there, like your McDonald's, your everything that does, Jiffy Lube, H&R Block, they pointed out, all of them had non-compete agreements. Like you can't steal workers from one or the other. Like if you run a McDonald's, you can't take other McDonald's workers. Why? Give people options to move around within the jobs, because that raises wages. And all of this stuff is what they're doing to try and raise wages up, as what corporate America has been trying to suppress them. And finally, someone is pushing back against this. It's about time. Thank you, Biden, Department of Justice. Just my thought. Love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you're just joining us, make sure you grab the podcast. Always check out the podcast. I'll take the program on the go. Never miss a moment. You can find that at thericksmithshow.com. Right back after this.
It takes a lot to raise a family. A good job, a good salary, and some patience. A lot of people my age are drowning in college debt. But I chose a different path. I'm a member of the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I work hard for my job, and I love what I do. I had a lot of choices for my future, but I made the best choice for my family. IBEW, the right choice.
Calling all builders, all welders and roofers, engineers and electricians, calling all brick masons and boilermakers, steel workers and steam fitters. Your country is calling you to rebuild America, to create a cleaner, safer, more prosperous future for all. Tackling climate change, this is the job of our lifetime. It's time to build back better. Let's get to work.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So interesting day for the Treasury Department to be asking for more money for the IRS. Kind of interesting, but they're going to need it, especially if Elizabeth Warren's op-ed is correct. And we are seriously auditing people making less than $25,000 a year at a higher rate than we're auditing people who make between $200,000 and $1 million a year. I got to tell you, there's part of me that goes, just the payoff, just the amount of money that you would bring in seems so much less and much more insignificant at the lower end. Because I don't know, that old saying, you can't get blood out of a rock. Kind of seems like that to me, but the IRS is asking, like I said, for a little bit more money. I think that I forget how many more millions they were asking for. 80 billion over the next decade. They claim that they can pull in with a little bit more investment. It's crazy that we don't. Anyway, but it is tax day. That's why I've asked our good friend Morris Pearl to come talk with us. Morris is the chairman of the Patriotic Millionaires. Patrioticmillionaires.org is their website. Morris has the fabulous book, and I love the title, Tax the Rich: How Lies, Loopholes, and Lobbyists Make the Rich Even Richer. Morris, thanks for taking time for us.
Great to be in your show, Rick.
So, saw the statistic, and maybe you can talk to this, that each year we give up about $1 trillion by not doing what your book says. By not taxing the very wealthy, we give up $1 trillion into the coffers, which seems high to me. But I go, if we had $1 trillion additionally coming in, we could do a lot of decent things. I don't know, like that child tax credit that didn't get renewed for $100 billion a year. We could have done that and cut childhood poverty permanently by 40%. There's a lot of things I think we could have done.
Because our current system is biased in favor of the people who are already rich. It only taxes what we call taxable income. And that's obvious when somebody like you gets a paycheck every week with taxes deducted from it. But for investors like me, we don't get paychecks. We don't get anything deducted from anything. I just sit here and watch the numbers on my computer screen go up and up and up and up. And I'm getting richer and richer and richer. But that doesn't count as taxable income. So I don't have to pay income taxes. And yes, occasionally I sell something, but I don't generally. I can withdraw money from my account without selling anything. I have lines of credit. I can do hedging. I can do all kinds of things. So I decide for myself if I feel like paying taxes or not. And yeah, I do pay a little bit of taxes, but as a percentage of how much money I make, nothing compared with what someone who works for a living pays.
Yeah, there's something wrong with that. Now, like last week I was talking about the fact that ProPublica did a piece, and they looked at the top 25, the wealthiest 25 people in the country, and Mike Bloomberg, during I think it was 2013 to 2018, made on average about $2 billion a year and paid a federal tax rate of 3.4%. And I said that's just completely ridiculous. Now, this isn't an attack on Mike Bloomberg. I don't know him personally. I have nothing against him. I have a problem with a system that says, yeah, $2 billion a year you can make and pay 3.4% taxes, while you have people who are getting up every day, cleaning up, the mess made by who knows what, paying, 3 times that. It just seems patently unfair.
Well, you can make any amount and not pay much taxes if you want to, because we have rules. We have somebody like Joe Manchin who came along and he said, oh, you can't tax somebody on things you don't have. They might only have it on paper. But I'll tell you, my 3-year-old granddaughter has a better understanding of the word have than Senator Manchin does, because nobody has everything is on paper. You have money in your wallet. That's a piece of paper. It's not actual value. You have money in your checking account. You look at your iPhone and, you look at the numbers on your app to see how much money you have. You don't actually have something tangible you can hold in your hands. Everything is something virtual. Almost all value and wealth is in bank accounts or stock market accounts or something or other that's out there somewhere. And the idea that somebody who works for a living gets really what they get is a pay stub that tells how much money is being transferred to their checking account every week. That's what they actually get. And that they have, and you can tax it. But somebody who looks at their computer screen and sees their stock going up and the value of their company is going up, that doesn't count as something they have. So that you can't tax. It's patently absurd, Rick. I mean, we have to change the system. It's not Mike Bloomberg's fault. He didn't cause the problem, but he and a few hundred other people are getting richer and richer and richer. And everyone who gets up every morning and works for a living and sees money deducted from their paycheck is barely getting by.
Yeah, I mean, there's a serious problem with this. I was just reading an article here before the show, and it said, if you're getting a W-2, you're a sucker. And now the theory now is if you work for a living, you're a sucker because you're paying all of these taxes. You're now the person, paying for the billionaires. Is that the future then?
That is the message from roughly one half of our Congress in Washington, is that, people aren't supposed to get rich working. They're supposed to get rich by, I don't know, starting their own companies and having rich parents who can finance their companies like most really rich people did. It's just, they don't even understand that most Americans don't have that opportunity. Most Americans don't have parents who are wildly wealthy dentists who can support them for years like Mark Zuckerberg did when he started Facebook. Most Americans don't have parents who can give them stipends for years, like Bill Gates did when he started Microsoft. And I think a lot of our Congress people don't even realize that. And it's just sad.
Yeah, and frustrating on a certain level as well. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Morris Pearl. Morris is the chairman of the Patriotic Millionaires, their website, patrioticmillionaires.org. Make sure you check out his book, Tax the Rich, How Lies, Loopholes, and Lobbyists Make the Rich Even Richer. We'll get links out on social media, how you can take a look at that and grab the book. Also, like I said, patrioticmillionaires.org. Go there. So the question then becomes, like you said, they don't quite understand it. Joe Manchin says it doesn't exist. You have a lot of working people who don't quite get how we tax. If they don't make income, they don't get a check at the end of the week. How do we tax them? What kind of a system should we be going towards? Because I think we've all been trained to believe in this income-based tax system that we've had all these years. They don't understand all the loopholes and all of the gimmicks and all the schemes that the tax avoidance industry has created. How do we create a system that is fairer, that ensures that we collect that $1 trillion? Because we are going to transfer a massive amount of debt on future generations, not just the national debt, but education debt. Municipalities have huge debt. We got problems going forward that we've got to pay for.
Well, I think that President Biden, President of the United States, Senator Wyden, the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, Elizabeth Warren, they have some of the right ideas. Basically, what we at the Patriotic Millionaires are saying is that you should pay tax the percentage of how much money you make, regardless of how you make the money. Whether you made money by your stocks going up in your portfolio, or the company you own becoming more valuable, or you getting a paycheck every week, or you inheriting money from your ancestors, however you make money, it should be the same exact tax rates. If you make $1 million and I make $1 million, we should both pay the same kind of taxes, even if you made your $1 million in a different way than I made my $1 million. That's basically a simple rule, and I think we can do something like that.
So explain to me why it is different because I've always had a problem with, and we come from very different worlds. Or we sit in different worlds. I don't know where you came from, but we sit in different worlds. As you said, you make your income off your investments. I make my income, driving a truck and working and collecting a paycheck. I've never understood why it is the taxes that I pay are taxed at a higher rate as my income goes up than yours, which is set at a fixed rate at capital gains. That never made any sense to me because, well, I got to be honest, Morris, this isn't a jealousy thing. It doesn't seem like an awful lot of work, watching the stock numbers go up or down. I'm sure there's a lot of pressure that goes with it, but it doesn't seem like it's an awful lot of work.
Well, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me either. That's why I'm trying to change the system. That's why we started the Patriotic Millionaires, to explain to people that it doesn't make sense, that there's not some magic thing. I think what the other side thinks is that, these rich people, they'll like go on strike and stop doing whatever they're doing if we make them pay taxes, or they'll all move to Zimbabwe where they don't have taxes. Let me tell you, we're not moving to Zimbabwe. If I wanted to move to Zimbabwe, I would have already moved to Zimbabwe. I live exactly where I want to live, which is on Park Avenue in New York City. And it's not because we have lower taxes here. We have plenty of taxes here. And I like that because my city, New York, has enough money to pay for stuff, for hospitals and universities and parks and all kinds of stuff that I enjoy having in my city. And that's why I live here. And that's why people from all over the world are moving to places like New York City and San Francisco, where they have high taxes and enough money to pay for stuff. The other side just has this fantasy that, oh, rich people, they're all going to go on strike or move away or something. If we make them pay tax, we have to appease them. Appeasement's not the right policy. You know, you can't get by, as you were saying at the beginning, just trying to collect more money from people that are poor and don't have much money. That doesn't work. But I think the problem is they don't really care about collecting money because they don't want the government to do anything anyway. They just want to have the government run out of money and stop doing stuff and stop collecting taxes. And that's not the kind of country where I want to live. I want to live in a country where we have a government, and the government is just a word for people doing stuff together, where we do stuff together we can't do individually. We can't build universities and hospitals and highways and all of those things with each person just being independent, doing their own thing. We have to have a system where lots of people pay taxes, and those with more money pay more taxes than those who have to work for a living. And that's the kind of country where I want to live.
Yeah, now Mike Gibbons, I'm sure you've heard of Mike Gibbons. He's the running for Senate in Ohio, and I'm sure you've heard the quote that rich people pay all the taxes, Morris. I'm sure you've heard this. This is a constant refrain. They pay all the taxes. Poor people don't pay anything, and the middle class they don't pay anything either, I guess was his premise. I think the Tea Party folks would be kind of upset to hear that, considering that they were running around saying that they were taxed enough already. How do you address that when the frame of a major political party is that the rich people are paying all the taxes, that you're going to have this rich guy who could be a U.S. senator, going to vote on tax policy in the future, saying that working people don't pay enough taxes and that they don't pay their fair share when things on paper look the way they do.
Well, I hope that people who work for a living take a look at their pay stubs when they walk into their voting booth and decide for themselves if they think they don't pay enough taxes. The problem is, as you said, you can't get more money from poor people. They don't have very much money. That's one thing I learned in the finance world, is that poor people do not have very much money. And you have to get more taxes from those people who have more money. That's how our country was created. That's what the founding fathers did. Our taxes were taxes on wealth when this country was created. That's why they called the original states commonwealths, like the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, where you live. And we had commonwealths because they understood we needed common wealth. And they taxed people's wealth, which is mostly their land. So you had taxes on land. Now, we still have taxes on land. If you ask anyone who's a homeowner in Pennsylvania, and they can tell you they pay plenty of real estate taxes. But really, really rich people have most of their wealth in other things, like stocks in their stock portfolio and businesses, and they don't pay any wealth tax on that. So we have shifted all of it, basically, from the rich to people who work for a living. And it's just not working. Yeah. The rich are getting richer and richer and richer, and huge numbers of people are struggling to get by. And the country is just not sustainable that way.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, you brought up, people owning homes. I look at someone like Elon Musk, who, says he doesn't own a home. He just, evidently, he's like some kind of vagabond. He just goes and mooches off friends. He goes. I guess he has sleepovers over at friends' houses. I guess maybe they live in shacks that have an extra room or two.
Well, I actually live in a cooperative apartment here in New York City, a co-op, and I don't actually own real estate either, but I pay a monthly fee for my co-op, and some of that goes to pay real estate tax and all kinds of other things. And there's nothing wrong with living in an apartment or a rental or anything else. But I was trying to make a point that we don't tax people on their wealth like we did when the country was first created. We only tax homeowners on their wealth, and that's, a lot of people, like a third, don't own their own homes. They live in rentals or stay with friends or whatever.
Yeah, no, the reason I brought that up is, even most rich people, and some that I know, they don't own their homes either. A corporation does. They've figured out ways to where even their assets they don't actually own. Again, it's part of this world that I don't think a lot of us really understand.
There's a whole industry out there of thousands and thousands of people that cater to like helping wealthy people not pay much taxes. And it's just sad. That's why we called the group the Patriotic Millionaires, because we're trying to make the point that it's actually patriotic to pay taxes. Back during World War II, they had commercials on TV with funny little jingles about, Rockefeller helped pay for this plane and so did I. And they try to make a point that everybody pays taxes and it's a patriotic thing to do. But now, because of our previous president, who's the only person I know actually moved out of New York State, moving from Fifth Avenue to Mar-a-Lago, because of him, we got the idea that, only stupid people pay taxes. And then the point is they want to make everyone believe, I'm just a sucker. We should just get rid of all taxes and get rid of all government programs and have nothing. And only rich people should have anything. And that's just not the country we want to live.
Yeah, I'm with you. Last question I've got. How can we move an agenda forward that's going to return, like I keep saying, we need to return to something of a more progressive tax code, maybe not all the way back to the good socialist President Dwight Eisenhower's tax code, but somewhere in that direction where the bigger your shoulders, the more you can carry, the more that's expected of you. How do we get back there?
Tell your listeners, Rick, bring your pay stub to your voting booth when you decide how to vote. Look at your pay stub and decide if you think the regular working Americans are paying too much taxes or the rich people are paying too much taxes, and vote accordingly. There
you go. Morris, I appreciate the time. It's always great talking with you, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rick. Great to be in your show.
Good stuff. Morris Pearl, chairman of the Patriotic Millionaires. Make sure you check out their website, patrioticmillionaires.org. Also, check out the book, Tax the Rich, How Lies, Loopholes, and Lobbyists Make the Rich Even Richer. Get that at patrioticmillionaires.org. Quick break. Right back with your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show. We're working people on the talk.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So the reality is, we had a billionaire class that got $2 trillion wealthier during the pandemic and didn't really pay any real significant tax on it. I mean, that's just mind-blowing to me. And yet we got folks going, well, it's Joe Biden's spending that's causing all this inflation. Wow. I know. Deep breaths. Let's go to the phone. This will help. Let's get Alice on line one. Alice, how are we doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm breathing deeply. Go.
Okay. So, the entire nation is just going insane, thanks to the right wing. But I'm like going, okay, so we got DeSantis down there going, we've got critical race theory in the math books. Now, I have never, and God knows, I'm not a math major, never was. I can do interest in my head if it's millions. But other than that, hey, it's money. I can deal with that. But I'm thinking, okay, how can you have critical race theory? I know they used one of those stupid written, little math problems where it says Juan had 5 candy bars and Letitia had 6. How many candy bars did they have? And how many candy bars did they have if they gave 2 of them to, and then insert whatever ethnic-sounding name that you want? I mean, that's the only way I can figure out that you had critical race theory in math.
Yeah, I've asked some friends down there, hey, can you get me examples? And there are some people who are trying, because I would like to know what the examples are.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, the only thing I can figure is it had to be, one of those little ones that they give, the kindergartners or whatever. You got 2 balloons and Bobby has 2, and I'm just shaking my head. But I think they want us all stupid, and then that way nobody can count their money and claim that they don't have any.
Yeah,
but you have a nice evening.
Thank you so much. And then not realize how badly we're getting screwed over. No, look, the reality, and I keep coming back to this number, $1 trillion. $1 trillion a year by not taxing the wealthy. We're leaving $1 trillion a year on the table by not taxing the wealthy. And you go, but the smart people, they're using it for, to make more money for themselves. Maybe they're consuming a little bit, but the fact that we can't expand programs that we desperately need, I mean, I think of Joe Manchin's logic and why we couldn't keep the child tax credit expansion, why we couldn't keep that. And it was because, well, the parents will buy drugs and alcohol and they'll squander it, which we know that, 90% of that money was spent locally on the things that was needed. You couldn't target a program better than what they did with that money. They set it on food and clothing and housing and the stuff that absolutely needed. The welfare dollar is spent exactly as it's supposed to. In the vast majority of cases, the waste, fraud, and abuse in that program is so low. Even with all of the anecdotal stories you hear, because you're giving it to people who need it and they're spending it on the food that they need, and that food that is produced by farmers need that income. It's a system that works. But you still have those people who will begrudge them that. And that's infuriating. But they don't seem to have a problem. Don't seem to have a problem going, no, we're going to give a massive tax break to someone like Morris. And look, Morris is honest about it. Look, I'm a rich guy, I live at Park Avenue. I don't have to work. The hardest day's work Morris does every day is moving money from one pocket to the other. And he told you that. It's not that difficult. And he's saying, look, tax us more. And so people say, well, just send in more money. It's not that easy. You need systematic change. And we need to be doing it at election time. And he's right. Take your paycheck. If you're struggling to make ends meet, the Republican Party is not who you should be voting for. And corporate Democrats are not the people you should be voting for. Seems simple to me. Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you're just joining us, make sure you grab the podcast. You can do that at the website or wherever you get your podcasts. Back after this.
It doesn't happen like we think it does. No one rolls the tanks. No armies meet in pitched battle. It happens quietly, little by little. And because so many think it can't happen, it does happen. Little by little, the rules change. It doesn't seem shocking or sudden. And that's the point. Fewer places to vote, longer lines. Don't worry, they say. We're just improving the system. They hope we won't notice the rules are changing because they lost the last election. They hope we just won't care enough to stop them. They believe they can take America away from us, and we won't even notice. We know who they are. We know what they want. The question is, who are we? Do we let them get away with it, or do we fight? Democracy is on the ballot. Vote while your vote still counts. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
caught me by surprise. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. Questions, comments, something on your mind, you can email me, rick at thericksmithshow.com. You know, seriously, you look at this report, and it's amazing to me that you look at the pure numbers. Warehouse work overall, they say 3.3 people out of every 100 in the entire industry are injured on the job. Amazon, it's 6.8 per 100. You're looking at more than double the average. And why is that? You know, why? Well, you know, you look at the speed up that goes on, the fact that the people that I've talked to say that they give you a handheld unit, and if you're not constantly touching something, it's yelling at you, it's barking at you, saying, you know, and I've heard stories of that little handheld thing firing you. I mean, you're constantly under watch. You're constantly under supervision. You're constantly being directed. It really is. You're being constantly harassed and intimidated and watched and surveilled. It's really a horrible environment. And they're out there saying, you know, we pay, you know, this wage, and you go, is it worth it for the kind of as he pointed out, the kind of potential disability? You know, if I had kids and they said, I want to go work there, like, no way. And, you know, not today. And look, I've worked in warehouses. I've worked in industries that are taxing on your body. Is it worth it for what is really not a great wage? Sorry, $16 an hour is not a living wage, especially to do that kind of work. That wage, I was making 28 years ago to do that kind of work. You know, you're talking $30 an hour to do that work now. Maybe we're talking about maybe being worth it a little bit more. But I'm sorry. So Jeff Bezos can have a $500 million boat or you know, go play in space? No. So that you can have more profit? I mean, it's insane what we've done in this country so that we could have more rich people who don't pay taxes. I mean, really, it really kind of is when you stop and you think about the kind of stuff we put up with, the kind of work that we're forced to do. And look, I've done it. I've worked in horrible conditions. I've done a lot of stuff that in this moment, I'm hoping that people are paying attention. I'm hoping that folks are going to start organizing around, you know, how do you make these jobs better? Now, here's the reality. As someone pointed out to me, Amazon will eventually move to automation. And this is where policy has to come into place. At some point, we have to address the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is, how do you make an economy work for all of us when productivity gains like automation happen? I don't want to be against automation. I don't want to be against things that are going to make the country more productive. I don't want to. But if it means that Jeff Bezos and the handful of shareholders that own Amazon and, you know, the executives are going to make untold fortunes while the working class of this country continue to suffer, struggle, and be left behind, then that is untenable. That is something that we cannot allow to happen, but has happened for far too long. And where we need to be pushing for policy now. We need to be pushing for smart policy now to deal with it. Look, truck drivers, get ready for it. You're going to be out of jobs in the next couple of decades. The long-haul truck driving job is going to be gone. What's going to happen to all these people once that happens? I've said from the beginning, at least the people who are in the industry when it happens, they should be made whole. None of this stuff. Oh, we'll get you retraining. You can go to the community college and learn how to be a seamstress. Make $8 an hour. All the while, the the corporations are lining their pockets. We need smarter policy, which means we need smarter people in those offices, in those halls of power. People like you, people like me, folks who are going to stand up for working people. Just my thought. Love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you missed any of today's program, make sure you grab the podcast there at the website or wherever you get your podcasts, from iTunes to iHeart, Stitcher to Podbean, everywhere in between. Share with your friends, share with your coworkers. Make sure it gets around. And like I said, you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Make sure you follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of that. Thanks for being here. See you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.